The match struck with a hiss that echoed like a death rattle in the empty living room, and Elijah watched, frozen, as his father held the flickering flame to the corner of the check. "This family's poison ends with you, boy?" Harlan spat, the $38 million promise from Grandpa Elias curling into black ash that danced toward the ceiling like fleeing ghosts. In that instant, Elijah's world didn't shatter. It ignited, a slow burn of rage and grief that would consume everything he thought he knew about love, legacy, and the man he'd one day call home. Elijah Harlan stood in the doorway of the cramped Brooklyn brownstone, the kind of place where dreams went to die under peeling wallpaper and the constant hum of the F train rattling the foundations. It was a Thursday in late October, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked leaves and regret, and at 24, he felt every bit the failure his father had always painted him to be. Harlan, a broad-shouldered ex-cop turned security guard, had spent Elijah's childhood drilling into him that the world was a meat grinder for dreamers. "You ain't got the stones for New York, kid," he'd growl over lukewarm beers at the corner bodega. "Stick to what you know. Fixing cars, paying bills, keeping your head down." But Elijah had never been good at keeping his head down. Not when he'd come out at 17, not when he'd dropped out of community college to chase a half-baked dream of screenwriting in the city that birthed Scorsese and Spielberg. And certainly not now, as the ashes of that check settled on the threadbare Persian rug like dirty snow. Grandpa Elias, the silver-haired patriarch of the Harlan clan, who'd built a shipping empire from nothing in the ports of San Francisco, had died 3 weeks ago, leaving behind a will that read like a middle finger to Harlan's blue-collar pride. $38 million, wired straight to Elijah, with a note scrawled in Elias's shaky hand. "For the grandson who dared to dream beyond these walls. Don't let your father bury you like he buried me." Harlan had found the envelope that morning, tucked into Elijah's beat-up messenger bag amid dog-eared scripts and unpaid utility bills. Elijah had planned to cash it quietly, maybe buy a one-way ticket out of this hellhole and start fresh. But Harlan, with his meaty fists and perpetual scowl, had other ideas. "You think that old bastard's handing you a golden ticket? It's a trap, Eli. A goddamn trap to drag us all back into his web of lies." The words had barely left his mouth before the lighter fluid came out, doused in a glug that reeked of gasoline and finality. And now, the check was gone, reduced to a smudge on the floorboards that Elijah knelt to sweep up with trembling hands. "You son of a bitch," Elijah whispered, his voice cracking like thin ice. Harlan loomed over him, chest heaving, eyes wild with the kind of fear that masquerades as fury. "That was mine. My future. Your future." Harlan barked a laugh that held no humor. "Boy, you got no future. You're a fag scribbling fairy tales in a city that chews up queers like you and spits out bones. Elias knew it, that's why he dangled this crap. To make you think you're special, when all he ever did was run from his own." Elijah surged to his feet, the broom clattering against the wall. At 5'10", he was no match for Harlan's 6'2" frame, but anger lent him height. "He saw me, Dad. He saw the real me, the one you pretend doesn't exist. And now you've burned it. All of it." His throat tightened, hot tears pricking his eyes, but he wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of the man who'd once locked him in his room for a week after finding that crumpled copy of The Advocate under his mattress. Harlan's face twisted, a map of regrets etched deep from years of night shifts and whiskey chasers. "Get out," he muttered, turning away to the kitchen where empty bottles waited like old friends. "Pack your shit and go. I ain't raising no ingrate." Elijah didn't need telling twice. He grabbed his bag, stuffed in the essentials. Laptop, charger. A dog-eared copy of The Great Gatsby that Grandpa Elias had mailed him on his 18th birthday, and bolted into the drizzling night. The streets of Bed-Stuy swallowed him whole, neon signs flickering like false promises from the delis and laundromats. He walked aimlessly, the weight of betrayal pressing on his chest like a lead vest, until his phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Oliver. "Hey, stranger. Still on for that coffee? Or did your script deadline eat you alive again?" Oliver Reyes, the one bright spot in Elijah's grayscale existence. They'd met 6 months ago at a queer open mic night in the Village, where Elijah had read a monologue about a boy who loved too fiercely in a world that demanded silence. Oliver, with his easy grin and artist's hands stained with charcoal, had cornered him afterward in the smoky alley. That was raw, man, like Kerouac on acid, but with heart. One beer led to a walk across the Brooklyn Bridge at midnight, and by dawn, Elijah had kissed him under the shadow of Lady Liberty's torch, tasting salt from the East River and the sweetness of finally feeling seen. Now, blocks from the bridge that had become their sanctuary, Elijah thumbed a reply, running late. Family drama. Meet me at the arch? He didn't wait for the affirmative. He knew Oliver would be there, sketchpad in hand, turning the chaos of the city into lines of beauty. The wind off the water bit through Elijah's thin jacket as he approached the stone archway, its Gothic curves a relic of a grander New York. Oliver was already there, leaning against the railing, his blonde curls tousled by the breeze, a thermos of coffee steaming in his grip. At 25, Oliver looked like he'd stepped out of a Sundance film, lean and golden, with hazel eyes that held the warmth of California sunsets, even in this concrete jungle. Born in Oakland to Filipino-American parents who disowned him for being gay, he'd fled west to east 3 years ago, chasing art school dreams that barely paid the rent on his Bushwick loft. Eli, Oliver said, spotting him, his voice a soft anchor in the storm. He pushed off the rail and pulled Elijah into a hug that smelled of espresso and graphite. You look like hell. What's up? Elijah buried his face in Oliver's shoulder, the dam breaking at last. Words tumbled out in a rush, the funeral he'd skipped, the letter from Elias's lawyer confirming the check's legitimacy, Harlan's ritual of destruction. Oliver listened without interrupting, his hand tracing slow circles on Elijah's back, until the story wound down to exhausted silence. Jesus? Oliver murmured, pulling back to cup Elijah's face, thumbs brushing away the damp tracks on his cheeks. I don't even know what to say, but you're not alone in this, okay? We'll figure it out. Elijah managed a watery smile, leaning into the touch. How? It's gone. Poof, like it never existed. Oliver's eyes sparkled with that reckless optimism that had hooked Elijah from day one. Nah, money's just paper, Eli. Your grandpa saw something in you worth more than that. And so do I. He kissed Elijah then, slow and sure, the kind of kiss that promised tomorrows even when today felt like an ending. The city lights blurred around them, the bridge humming with traffic like a lullaby, and for a moment, Elijah let himself believe in second chances. They ended up at Oliver's loft, a sunlit chaos of canvases and half-finished sculptures, in a converted warehouse that overlooked the glittering sprawl of Queens. Oliver poured cheap red wine into mismatched mugs, and they curled up on the sagging couch, Elijah's head in Oliver's lap as the other man ran fingers through his dark waves. Tell me about him, Oliver said softly. Your grandpa. What made him different? Elijah stared at the ceiling fan, its lazy spin stirring memories like dust motes. Elias Harlan had been the black sheep of his own generation, a closeted gay man who'd married Elijah's grandmother for cover, building his fortune on transatlantic freighters while hiding love letters from a long-lost lover in the hulls of his ships. He'd reached out to Elijah after the coming-out fiasco, sending books on queer icons, Walt Whitman, James Baldwin, and notes that said, "You're braver than I ever was, kid. Hold on to that fire." He was like me, Elijah said finally, stuck in a family that wanted him straight and silent. But he broke free in his way, built an empire from the water up. Oliver nodded, his touch turning to a gentle massage at Elijah's temples. Then that's your inheritance, Eli. Not the cash, the guts to build your own empire. Start with that script you've been hiding. The one about the sailor who sails back for the boy he left behind. Elijah chuckled, the sound rusty but real. You read my notes? Guilty. Oliver grinned, leaning down for another kiss. It's gold, babe. Pure gold. That night, as rain pattered against the loft skylight, they made love with the urgency of survivors. Slow at first, exploratory hands mapping scars both seen and unseen, then building to a rhythm that drowned out the world's cruelties. Oliver's body was a revelation. Lithe muscle from years of hauling art supplies, skin like warm caramel under Elijah's palms, whispers in Tagalog that Elijah didn't understand but felt in his bones. Mahal kita? Oliver breathed against his neck, and Elijah clung tighter, whispering back, I love you too. The words of vow etched in sweat and starlight. By morning, the betrayal felt less like a wound and more like fuel. Elijah woke to the smell of pancakes, Oliver's half-Filipino ritual, fluffy with a hint of coconut, and a plan scribbled on a napkin. Call lawyer. Dig deeper. Write the damn thing. But as they ate cross-legged on the floor, sunlight slanting through the blinds, Elijah's phone rang with an unknown California number. He answered on instinct, and a polished voice crackled through. Mr. Harlan? This is Margaret Voss from Voss and Associates. Your grandfather's estate. We need to talk about the real inheritance. Elijah's fork clattered to the plate. Oliver's eyes widened, hand squeezing his knee. Real? Elijah echoed, heart pounding. What do you mean, real? The lawyer's paws stretched like taffy. The check was just the beginning, Mr. Harlan. Elias left you something far bigger. Something that could change everything. Margaret Voss's office overlooked the Embarcadero, where fog rolled in from the bay like a lover's breath, softening the edges of San Francisco's steel and glass skyline. Elijah arrived 2 days later, after a red-eye flight funded by Oliver's emergency credit card and a promise to call every hour, or I'll hitchhike after you. The city hit him like a jolt of espresso, vibrant, layered, alive with the ghosts of gold rush dreamers and counterculture rebels. It felt like stepping into one of his scripts, where every corner hit a plot twist. Voss was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, silver-streaked bob and pearls that screamed old money discretion. She shook Elijah's hand with a grip like iron wrapped in velvet. Mr. Harlan, Elijah, your grandfather spoke of you often in our last meetings. Said you had his fire, but none of his regrets. She gestured to a leather armchair across from her desk, piled high with folders stamped Harlan Estate. Confidential. Elijah sank into it, nerves jangling. The check. My father destroyed it. I thought that was it. Voss's lips quirked in a knowing smile. Elias anticipated as much. Harlan Sr., your father, never forgave him for leaving the family business to a disappointment, as he put it. The check was a test, Elijah, a decoy to flush out the doubters. She slid a thick envelope across the desk, embossed with the Harlan Shipping Company seal, a stylized anchor entwined with olive branches. The true inheritance is the company itself. Full control transferred to you upon his passing. Valued at over $2.3 billion. Give or take market fluctuations. The room tilted. Elijah stared at the envelope, its weight suddenly immense. Billion? That's impossible. Grandpa was loaded. Sure, but the whole company. Elias built it from a single tugboat in '68 post-Vietnam, when men like him, queer, overlooked, had to claw for every knot. He wove in protections. The check was bait, yes, but also a signal. If it vanished, it meant you were ready to fight for what's yours. Voss leaned forward, eyes piercing. He wanted you to claim it not for the money, but for the legacy. To rewrite the Harlan name on your terms. Elijah's mind reeled, fragments of conversations with Elias surfacing. Late-night calls where the old man would ramble about anchors in the storm. Boy, the ones that hold when the waves crash. Shipping wasn't just freight. It was arteries of the world, connecting ports from Shanghai to Southampton, carrying dreams in cargo holds. And now it was his, but doubt crept in cold as bay mist. What if I can't? I'm a writer, not a CEO. Hell, I can barely manage my own life. Voss's gaze softened. Elias said you'd say that. He left instructions. A board of trustees to guide you, starting with me. And a personal letter. She handed him a sealed vellum envelope, Elias's handwriting bold on the front. For Elijah, when you're ready to sail. He broke the seal with shaking fingers, unfolding the pages yellowed with age. My dearest grandson, if you're reading this, Harlan's done what I feared. Tried to burn away what I built for you. But fire forges steel, Eli. I was never brave enough to live my truth. hid behind boardrooms and brides who deserved better. You're out there, loving loud in a world that still whispers shame. Take the helm. Not for me, but for the boy I was, and the man you'll become. P.S. There's a package in the attic of the old estate. Your real treasure waits there. Love, Grandpa. Tears blurred the ink. Elijah folded the letter, tucking it into his jacket like a talisman. The estate? In Pacific Heights. Voss nodded. Elias's home since '85. It's yours too now. Shall we go? The drive up the hill was a blur of Victorian mansions and eucalyptus groves, the city unfolding below like a lover's sprawl. Elias's house was a turreted beauty, painted sage green with gables that pierced the clouds. Inside, it smelled of polished oak and sea salt, every room a snapshot of a life half-lived. Oil paintings of stormy seas, a library groaning with queer literature smuggled from Paris bookshops, a hidden bar stocked with single malt scotches labeled with lovers' initials. Voss led him to the attic stairs, dust motes dancing in the slanted light. He was particular about this space, said it held his heart. The stairs creaked underfoot, opening into a loft crammed with steamer trunks and yellowed maps. In the center, shrouded in a dropcloth, sat a sea chest bound in brass, engraved with H and JM forever. Elijah's breath caught. JM, the lover from Elias's letters, the phantom sailor who'd vanished at sea in '79. He unveiled the chest with reverent hands, the lid groaning open to reveal not gold bars or deeds, but stacks of journals, faded photographs, and a leather-bound album. The photos showed Elias young and laughing, arms slung around a dark-haired man with eyes like midnight. Jack Monroe, by the captions, posing on decks slick with spray, their hands intertwined in secret defiance. The journals were poetry in prose. Entries of stolen nights in Marseilles, dances in underground Berlin clubs during the AIDS crisis, the ache of separation when Jack shipped out for the Gulf. He loved like the tide, Elijah murmured, tracing a pressed wildflower between pages. Fierce, then gone. Voss watched from the doorway, arms crossed. Elias chronicled it all for you, said one day a Harlan would live it openly. He believed that was you. Elijah closed the chest, a fire kindling in his chest. Not the rage from Brooklyn, but something warmer, truer. He spent the afternoon poring over the album, piecing together a love story that mirrored his own. Hidden glances, coded letters, the quiet revolution of two men against the world. By dusk, as the sun dipped into the Pacific, painting the attic in amber, he called Oliver. Babe. Oliver's voice was sleepy, laced with worry. You land okay? Find the pot of gold. Elijah laughed, the sound echoing off the rafters. Better. Everything, Ollie. The company, the house. And stories. Grandpa's stories. About love that survived storms. A pause, then Oliver's grin audible through the line. Tell me. So he did, words spilling like waves, until the call stretched into hours. Oliver listened, interjecting with questions that drew out the details. The way Jack's tattoo of an anchor bloomed across his forearm, the recipe for Elias's absinthe-laced courage scribbled in the margins. Sounds like us, Oliver said finally, voice thick. Two fools building something real amid the wreckage. Yeah, Elijah agreed, glancing at a photo of Elias and Jack silhouetted against a sunset sail. Come out here. Tomorrow. I need you. The line hummed with Oliver's soft inhale. Flights booked. See you at the gate. That night, Elijah slept in Elias's four-poster bed, the sheets crisp with lavender, dreams tangled with salt spray and Oliver's laugh. Morning brought Voss with coffee and contracts, the board's interim meeting via Zoom, a gauntlet of suits who eyed him like a curiosity, a 20-something queer writer inheriting a Fortune 500 titan. Mr. Harlan, the CFO droned. We advise caution. The market's volatile. Elias's expansions into green shipping are risky. Elijah, fortified by the journals, leaned into the camera. Risk is the Harlan way. We're not hauling oil anymore, we're carrying the future. Solar sails, electric tugs. Let's make it happen. Murmurs rippled through the pixels, but Voss nodded approval. By noon, Elijah was alone in the estate's garden, overlooking the bay where freighters ghosted in like faithful hounds. His phone buzzed, Harlan. He almost let it ring out, but curiosity won. You little shit. His father's voice slurred, thick with bourbon. Heard from the cousins. You think you're hot stuff now? Stealing what's mine. Elijah's grip tightened. It was never yours, Dad. Grandpa knew you'd burn it, literally. This is about legacy, not revenge. Harlan's laugh was a wheeze. Legacy? Your kind of legacy gets you AIDS or beat to death in an alley. I protected you, boy. From him, from yourself. The words landed like hooks, yanking old wounds. Protected? You isolated me, made me hate the mirror. Elijah's voice rose, echoing off the manicured hedges. But I'm done hiding. For me, for Grandpa, for the man I love. Silence, then a clink of glass. Love, right? That spick artist? He'll bleed you dry, just like Elias's pretty boys did. Rage flared, hot and unbidden. His name is Oliver, and he's worth 10 of you. Don't call again. He hung up, chest heaving, the bay indifferent below. Oliver's plane touched down at SFO that evening, and Elijah met him at arrivals, heart slamming like a drum. Oliver emerged from the crowd in a faded Ramones tee and jeans frayed at the knees, duffel slung over one shoulder, looking every inch the road-weary poet. Their reunion was a collision. Elijah pulling him close amid the bustle, kissing him fierce and unapologetic, ignoring the stares from harried travelers. Missed you, Oliver gasped when they broke for air, foreheads pressed together. Show me the city, Elijah said, grabbing his hand. Our city now. They rented a cherry-red Mustang convertible, Elijah's first extravagant whim, and cruised the crooked streets, wind whipping their hair as Oliver narrated like a tour guide on Molly. The Castro's rainbow crosswalks where Harvey Milk once walked, the Hate's Victorian ghosts whispering of summer of love hookups, the Presidio's hidden trails where soldiers had stolen kisses under live oaks. They parked at Land's End, hiking the cliffside path to Sutro Bath's ruins, the ocean crashing below like applause. There, on a blanket spread amid tide pools, they shared a picnic of sourdough and Dungeness crab, Oliver sketching Elijah's profile against the surf, jaw set, eyes distant with the weight of new worlds. You're glowing, you know, Oliver said, charcoal smudging his fingers. Like you finally fit your skin. Elijah caught his hand, kissing the stains. It's you. This feels like home. The admission hung, vulnerable and vast. Oliver's smile faltered, just a flicker. Eli, there's something I gotta. But the sun dipped, painting the waves gold, and Elijah silenced him with a kiss, chasing away shadows. They made love in the gathering dusk, bodies entwined on the blanket, the world narrowing to gasps and the rhythm of the tide. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, Oliver traced the line of Elijah's collarbone. Promise me, he whispered. Whatever comes, we face it together. Always, Elijah vowed, the stars emerging like promises overhead. Back at the estate, they explored like kids in a candy store, Elias's wine cellar yielding bottles from 72 Bordeaux, the library's hidden nook revealing a first-edition Giovanni's room. But as midnight tolled, Oliver's phone lit up with a text that drained the color from his face. He stepped onto the balcony, voice low and urgent. Yeah, I know, but timing's shit. Give me a week. Elijah, eavesdropping from the shadows, felt a chill unrelated to the fog. Who was on the line? And why did Oliver's eyes, when he returned, hold a secret like a storm cloud? The board meeting was a coliseum of egos, held in the Harlan shipping boardroom on the 42nd floor of a waterfront tower that pierced the San Francisco fog like a defiant spire. Elijah arrived in a tailored navy suit, Voss's doing, off the rack from Brooks Brothers but cut to hug his frame just right. Flanked by her and a junior exec named Theo, a lanky queer kid from the legal team who'd bonded with Elijah over Baldwin essays during orientation. The room smelled of polished mahogany and fresh coffee, walls lined with sepia photos of Harlan freighters slicing through Atlantic gales. 20 faces turned as he entered, mostly silver-haired relics in Hermes ties, a smattering of younger sharks with MBAs from Wharton. The chairman, A bull-necked Texan named Buck Ramsey cleared his throat. "Well, folks, meet the new captain, Elijah Harlan, fresh off the farm, or whatever y'all Yankees call Brooklyn." Laughter rippled, forced and tinny. Elijah took the head seat, Elias's carved oak throne, and met their gazes steady. "Not a Yankee, Buck, and not fresh. I've been writing stories about men like us for years. Men who navigate storms others call impossible." He nodded to the projector, where Theo cued a deck Voss had helped assemble. Slides on retrofitting the fleet for hydrogen propulsion, partnerships with indigenous coastal tribes for sustainable routes, a queer mentorship program for port workers. Murmurs swelled to debate, Ramsey pounding the table about pipe dreams bleeding profits. A logistics VP from Seattle countering with data on EU carbon taxes. Elijah listened, channeling Elias's journals. Captains don't shout, they steer. When his turn came, he spoke low, unflinching. "This isn't charity. It's survival." Elias saw climate change coming in the 90s. Lost a ship to a hurricane that shouldn't have hit Oregon. "We honor him by evolving, not entombing his ways." A vote was called. It split 11-9 in favor with 2 abstentions. Ramsey stormed out, muttering about bleeding heart bullshit. But as the room cleared, Theo clapped Elijah's shoulder. "That was Baldwin-level fire, boss. Proud to sail with you." Elijah exhaled, the adrenaline crash hitting like a wave. "Thanks, man." Beers later, Voss says there's a dive in the mission with killer pupusas. Theo grinned. "You're on. Bring the boyfriend, Oliver, right? Heard he's an artist. My husband's a sculptor. They'll geek out." The mention twisted something in Elijah's gut, that balcony call still gnawing like a splinter. Oliver had been distant since arriving. Affectionate in bursts, but vanishing into his sketchpad for hours, phone face down during meals. "Yeah," Elijah said, forcing lightness. "He's adjusting." Back at the estate, Oliver was in the garden, charcoal flying across a massive canvas propped against an easel. A turbulent seascape where 2 figures clasped hands amid crashing waves, faces blurred but poses achingly intimate. "How'd it go?" he asked without looking up, brushstroke never faltering. Elijah wrapped arms around him from behind, chin on shoulder. "Survived. Maybe even won a skirmish." He nuzzled Oliver's neck, inhaling the familiar mix of turpentine and citrus cologne. "You? That piece is killer." Oliver tensed, just a fraction, then leaned back. "Inspired by your grandpa's stories. Jack and Elias, defying the deep." But his eyes, when they met Elijah's, held a shadow, guilt, fear. That night, over takeout from a hole-in-the-wall faux joint, Elijah broached it. "Ali, what's eating you? Since the flight, you've been elsewhere." Oliver set down his chopsticks, the clink loud in the sunlit conservatory. "It's nothing, just work stuff. Gallery in LA reached out. They want a show." Elijah's heart lifted, then sank. "That's huge. Why the long face?" "A beat. It's back home. Oakland. Means leaving for a bit. Setups, installs. Maybe a month." The words landed soft, but Elijah felt the undercurrent. "We just got here. Together." Oliver reached across the table, fingers lacing with his. "I know. And I want this, us, the empire building. But art doesn't wait, Eli. It's my anchor." Elijah squeezed back, swallowing the unease. "Then go. Nail it. I'll hold the fort." But as Oliver's smile bloomed, relief mingled with doubt, and Elijah wondered if anchors could rust. The next week blurred into a rhythm. Mornings at the office, wrestling spreadsheets and supply chain knots. Afternoons with Voss, decoding Elias's cryptic addendums. Clauses protecting queer employees from discrimination. Funds earmarked for HIV research in port cities. Evenings were sanctuary. Oliver dragging him to poetry slams in the Castro, where drag kings recited Ginsberg with hips that swung like pendulums, or quiet drives along the Great Highway, windows down, mixtapes of the national crooning loss and longing. One such night, after a reading where a poet described loving a man like swallowing stars, beautiful burning. They parked at Ocean Beach, the Pacific a black mirror under moonlight. Elijah pulled Oliver onto the hood, their breaths mingling in the chill. "Remember our first night?" Elijah murmured, lips brushing Oliver's ear. "Brooklyn Bridge. You said I wrote like heartbreak with hope." Oliver's hands roamed under Elijah's shirt, warm against salt-stung skin. "You do. You are." The kiss deepened, urgent, clothes shedding like old skins until they were bare under the stars, bodies moving in sync with the waves' crash. It was reverent, raw, Oliver's mouth tracing the freckles across Elijah's chest, Elijah's fingers digging into hips that bucked like sails in gale. "You're my horizon?" Oliver gasped, climax building like thunder, and Elijah shattered with him, the ocean roaring approval. Panting in the afterglow, wrapped in a forgotten jacket, Oliver's head on Elijah's chest, the confession slipped out. "Eli, that call the first night? It was my ex Marcus. He's in Oakland, sick. AIDS complication from back when we were stupid kids." Elijah stilled, the pieces slotting cruelly. Marcus, the artist who'd broken Oliver's heart in art school, the ghost in half their fights. "Why didn't you say?" Oliver sat up, moonlight carving shadows on his face. "Didn't want to jinx this. He's asking for closure, not me back." But seeing the gallery offer felt like fate's joke. Elijah pulled him close, heart aching with empathy's blade. "It's not a joke. Go. Be the man I love. Kind, even to ghosts." Oliver's eyes glistened. "You sure?" "Surer than shipping routes in fog." They kissed again, softer, sealing the pact. Oliver left for Oakland 3 days later. A tearful dawn at SFO where Elijah pressed a Harlan shipping key fob into his palm. "For when you return, captain's quarters await." The loft felt cavernous without him, echoes of laughter haunting the halls. Elijah threw himself into work, the company a distraction from the hollow in his chest. Theo became a lifeline, their beers turning to late-night strategy sessions at the Mint, a leather bar where harnessed patrons slung darts and wisdom. It was there, over whiskey sours, that Theo dropped the bomb. "Heard from a bored whisper. Ramsey's gunning for you. Thinks you're too green, too progressive. Got dirt, they say. On your dad, maybe you." Elijah's glass paused mid-sip. "Dirt?" Theo shrugged, eyes sympathetic. "Harlan Sr.'s got a rap sheet. 80s stuff, bashing queers in precinct bars. Elias covered it up to keep the family myth intact. If it leaks, it would torpedo the green initiatives, paint Elijah as legacy of violence." "Fuck." Elijah drained his drink, the burn grounding him. "Any proof?" "Not yet, but watch your back. And hey, call Oliver. You need backup." Elijah did, that night from the estate's widow's walk, phone pressed to ear as foghorns mourned below. Oliver picked up on the second ring, voice muffled by airport din. "Miss you already. How's the throne?" "Shaky." Elijah spilled it, the leak, the threat. Oliver listened. Then, "Fly up. Tonight. Marcus can wait." "You can't." But Elijah demurred. "Handle your closure. I'll weather this." 2 days later, the storm broke. A tabloid splash, Harlan airs homophobic roots. Empire built on blood. Hit inboxes at dawn. Ramsey's fingerprints all over the anonymous source. Protests erupted at the docks. Union reps demanding Elijah's resignation. Investors pulling strings. Voss called an emergency meeting, but as Elijah dressed, another call came. Harlan, sober for once. "It's me," his father grunted. "Saw the rag. They're twisting it. I was young, angry, but I changed. For you after I saw what I did." Elijah's blood ran cold. "After what?" A sigh like grinding gears. "That night I locked you in. I went out, got wasted, picked a fight with some twink at a bar. Cops hauled me off, but Elias bailed me, made it disappear. Said, hurt him again, and you're dead to me. I sobered up for you, Eli. But I never said sorry." The apology hung raw and ragged. Elijah gripped the phone, tears hot. "Too late for sorries. But, come here. Face it with me." Harlan paused. "Flying out. Be there tomorrow." The meeting was carnage. Ramsey gloating, trustees fracturing. Elijah stood, voice steady. My father's past is ugly, queer bashing in a time when it was sport. But he owned it, changed. Like this company will. We're not hiding. We're healing. Ramsay sneered. Pretty words, boy. But blood tells. Then Harlan burst in. Disheveled in a polo and khakis. Face flushed from the red eye. Shut your trap, Ramsay. That blood's mine. I was the monster, not my son. He turned to Elijah, eyes wet. I'm proud, kid. Of the man you're becoming. Elias would be too. The room hushed. Elijah crossed to him, embracing the man who'd once broken him. The hug fierce and forgiving. Whispers turned to nods. Ramsay deflated. By adjournment, the board held barely. That night, Harlan stayed at the estate. The two men sharing scotch on the terrace, stories flowing like balm. I burned that check 'cause I was scared, Harlan admitted. Scared you'd leave me like Elias did. Chase some fairy tale life. Elijah clinked glasses. I did leave. But family's not blood. It's choice. Harlan nodded. A ghost of a smile. Yeah, choice. Oliver returned the next morning. Canvas rolls under arm. Eyes bright. Heard about the showdown. My hero. The three shared breakfast. Awkward at first, then easing into laughter over Harlan's botched attempt at lumpia. But as Harlan napped jet-lagged, Oliver pulled Elijah aside. Marcus, it's done. Clean break. His voice cracked. But he told me something about us. Said I'm running from Roots, like he did. Elijah frowned. Roots? Oliver's gaze dropped. The gallery deal is funded by Harlan Shipping. Marcus knew. Said your company's sponsoring emerging queer voices. But it's a front. For laundering or some shit. I didn't know, Eli. Swear. The world tilted again. Betrayal's knife twisting deep. Elijah's fist connected with the balcony railing. The metal thrumming pain up his arm like judgment. A front? For what? Money laundering. The words tasted like ash, Harlan's scotch turning sour in his gut. Oliver stood there, face pale as the morning fog, hands outstretched like a supplicant. It came through a contact, anonymous donor via the foundation Elias set up. I thought it was legit, your legacy arm reaching out. Oliver's voice broke, hazel eyes pleading. Marcus recognized the Shell Corp from his old scene. Shady investors washing art sales for tax dodges. He warned me last night, made me dig. Eli, I confronted the gallery. They swear it's clean, but you believed him. Elijah's tone was ice. The hurt blooming thorns. Marcus, the ex with a vendetta, poisoning the well from afar. Or worse, truth in the venom. Oliver stepped closer, desperate. No, I believe you. We hire auditors, Voss, anyone. Fix it. Elijah recoiled, the space between them a chasm. Fix it? Like you fixed running back to Oakland without telling me about him. The accusation hung, ugly and true. Weeks of building, the company, the reconciliation with Harlan, the fragile dream of us. And now this fracture, spiderwebbing from a past neither had fully exorcised. Oliver's shoulders slumped, defeat etching lines around his mouth. I was wrong, scared. This world's big now, Eli, billion-dollar decisions, family ghosts. I didn't want to be the anchor dragging you down. You're not. Elijah started, but the words choked. He turned away, staring at the bay where a Harlan freighter cut through swells. Oblivious. Just go. Sketch your storms. I need to think. Oliver lingered, a ghost in the doorway, then slipped away, duffel in hand. The click of the latch echoed like a period. Harlan found him hours later, slumped in Elias's library, journals splayed like accusations. Lovers quarrel? The old man asked, settling into a wingback with 2 fresh scotches. Elijah took his, the burn steadying. Worse, betrayal. Companies tangled in some art world scam. Oliver's show was the bait. Harlan whistled low. Ramsay's work? That snake's been whispering to investors, saying you're soft on ethics. Elijah shook his head. No, this feels personal. He relayed Oliver's tale, the words tumbling bitter. Harlan listened, face darkening like thunderheads. Kid, I burned your ticket once. Don't do the same to love. He leaned forward, Elijah's eyes, piercing. I lost your mom to my pride. Chased shadows instead of truth. Go after him. Fight dirty if you have to. Elijah met his gaze, the advice a lifeline. And the scam. Leave that to Voss. She's got teeth. Harlan clapped his shoulder, the gesture rough but real. Family's choice, remember? Choose him. Elijah bolted, keys jangling, Mustang roaring to life. He tracked Oliver's phone to a Fleabag motel in the Tenderloin. The kind of neon-drenched dive where dreams checked in and nightmares checked out. The Mustang screeched into the lot, gravel spitting, and Elijah pounded on room 12's door, heart hammering. Cracked open, Oliver's face haggard, charcoal streaks like war paint. Eli, you don't get to ghost me. Elijah pushed inside, the room a claustrophobic cave. Unmade bed, half-packed bag, a canvas of fractured waves leaning against the wall. Not after everything. Oliver backed against the dresser, arms crossed like armor. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? That I love you? God. Eli, more than the tides love the moon. Then why run? Elijah's voice cracked, fists clenched. To Marcus? To your roots? Or, 'cause you think I'm some rich kid now, playing house with daddy's empire? Oliver flinched, the hit landing. Because I'm scared shitless. You were broke in Brooklyn, scraping by like me equals raw. Now, you're a titan. Mansions, meetings. I feel like the side character in your blockbuster. Elijah surged forward, grabbing Oliver's shirt, pulling him close until breaths mingled. You're the goddamn hero, you idiot. The one who saw me when I was invisible. Who kissed me on that bridge when I tasted like failure. His mouth crashed against Oliver's, fierce and claiming, tasting salt. Tears, sweat. See. Oliver resisted a heartbeat, then melted, hands fisting Elijah's hair. The kiss a tempest. Teeth clashing, tongues warring, bodies slamming against the wall with a thud that shook the cheap art. They stripped in a frenzy, clothes pooling like shed inhibitions, skin on skin, a map of urgency. Oliver's mouth trailed fire down Elijah's throat, nipping at collarbone, sucking marks like brands. Mine, he growled, dropping to knees on the threadbare carpet, taking Elijah in with a heat that buckled legs. Elijah gasped, fingers threading curls, hips bucking as Oliver's tongue worked magic. Slow laps, deep swallows, eyes locked upward in devotion. Ali, fuck. The release built like a rogue wave, crashing as Oliver hummed approval, swallowing every pulse. Elijah hauled him up, spinning them to the bed, repaying in kind. Lips ghosting thighs, tongue delving into folds of want. Oliver's moans a symphony. Eli, please, yes. Until he arched, spilling with a cry that echoed off peeling wallpaper. They collapsed, tangled and trembling, aftershocks rippling. Don't leave, Elijah whispered into damp curls. We're stronger in the storm. Oliver's arms tightened. Never again. Promise. Voss's audit hit like a broadside the next day. The scam was a red herring. Marcus's paranoia fueled by jealousy. The foundation's funds legit, traced to Elias's premortem gifts for arts patronage. No laundering, just serendipity twisted by spite. Elijah fired off a text to Oliver. Ghost busted. Gallery's yours. Love you. But Ramsey wasn't done. That afternoon, as Elijah toured the docks, workers in hard hats cheering the green retrofit pledges. A courier shoved an envelope into his hands. Inside, photos grainy but damning. Oliver and Marcus, tangled in an Oakland motel, time-stamped 2 nights prior. Your boys playing both sides. The note read, and signed but reeking of buck. Elijah's vision tunneled, the bay's salt sting mocking. Betrayal's second strike, sharper for the fresh wound. He confronted Oliver at the loft that evening. Photos splayed on the coffee table like evidence in a noir flick. Oliver's face drained of color. Eli, it's not what it looks like? Elijah's laugh was hollow. Then what is it? A setup. Oliver snatched a print, tracing the timestamp. Marcus cornered me after the gallery dinner. Drunk, desperate. I pushed him off. See the bruise on his arm? I left. Alone. Swear on my Ma's rosary. Elijah searched his eyes, finding truth in the tremble. Why believe you? After the call, the run. Because I choose you. Oliver closed the gap, hands framing Elijah's face. Every time. Let me prove it. He did, that night and the next. Love as atonement, bodies a battlefield of trust rebuilt thrust by thrust, whisper by whisper. But Ramsey's poison spread. Leaks to the press, board fractures widening. Harlan, sensing the siege, rallied old allies. Dockside vets who'd sailed with Elias, loyal to the bone. The climax brewed at the annual Harlan Gala, a black-tie bash in the estate's ballroom overlooking the bridge. Elijah arrived on Oliver's arm, the pair in matching velvet jackets. Elijah's midnight blue, Oliver's sage green, like warriors in finery. Harlan clapped Elijah's back, eyes proud. Show 'em Harlan Steele, son. The room glittered. Chandeliers dripping light, guests swirling in silks and tuxes. Investors, artists, activists. Oliver's gallery reps mingled, effusive over the sponsorship, while Theo schmoozed trustees, planting seeds of doubt on Ramsey's motives. Then Ramsey cornered them at the bar, scotch in hand, smirk oily. Cozy picture, Harlan. Your boy and his side piece. Real heart-warmer for the shareholders. Elijah's blood boiled. Fabricated trash. Unlike your ethics. Ramsey leaned in, breath sour. Ethics? Boy, I built this company while your grandpa flitted with fairies. Step down or the full album drops. Every kiss, every scandal. Oliver tensed beside him, but Elijah held firm. Threats? That's your play. He signaled Voss, who materialized with a tablet. Audit 2.0 your offshore accounts, Buck. Skimming retrofit funds for your Texas oil buddies. Elias's clauses? They trigger clawbacks. You're done. Gasps rippled as Voss projected the docs, wire transfers, falsified invoices. Ramsey blanched, glass shattering on marble. You little. Security. Harlan's hand-picked crew. Hauled him out. The room erupting in murmurs that swelled to applause as Elijah took the mic tonight. We celebrate not just legacy, but love. The kind that endures. Between grandfathers and grandsons, fathers and sons, partners who choose the storm. He pulled Oliver close, kissing him deep amid cheers, the bridge's lights winking approval beyond the glass. But as confetti fell, Oliver's phone buzzed. A final text from Marcus. He's lying to you. The photos? Tip of the iceberg. Ask about the Wills codicil. Elijah glimpsed it over his shoulder, the seed of doubt replanting. Trust, so newly tilled, threatened by winter's first frost. The codicil burned in Elijah's pocket like contraband. A single-page Voss had slipped him post-gala amid the champagne toasts and backslaps. An event of moral compromise, adultery, fraud, full estate reverts to charitable trust. Witnessed, HMV Elias's safeguard against scandal. A ghost clause to protect the empire from Harlan's gone rogue. Marcus's text implied Oliver knew. Had he betted the ex to sabotage, claiming the moral compromise for some twisted gain? Or was it Ramsey's parting shot? Digital venom from the brig? Elijah waited until the estate quieted. Guests ferried to hotels under starry skies. Harlan snoring in the guest wing after one scotch too many. Oliver was in the library, sketching by lamplight. The gala's euphoria faded to quiet focus. Can't sleep? He asked, not looking up, pencil whispering over paper. Elijah leaned against the door jamb, the codicil's edge pressing his thigh. Guilty. He crossed the room, perching on the desk's edge, close enough to smell Oliver's cologne. Sandalwood and sea. That text from Marcus. What iceberg? Oliver's hand stilled, eyes lifting slow. Eli, let it go. He's toxic, grasping at straws, 'cause I chose you. Chose me? Elijah pulled the page free, unfolding it with deliberate care. Or the empire. This says adultery voids everything. Convenient. Huh? Photos timed just right, your closure trip aligning with the leaks. Oliver surged up, chair scraping. You think I'd? After tonight? After us? Hurt flashed, raw as an open wound. Marcus is dying, Eli. Lashing out, 'cause I won't play nurse to his regrets. The codicil? He must have hacked Voss's files. Guy was a forger in his wild days. Elijah wanted to believe, the pull visceral, Oliver's warmth, the way his touch grounded like earth after quake. But doubt was a siren, whispering what if. Prove it. Call him. Now. Oliver's jaw set, a warrior's resolve. He dialed on speaker, the ring echoing hollow. Marcus answered on the fourth, voice reedy, laced with painkillers. Ollie? Miss me already? Cut the shit, Oliver snapped. The photos, the text, Elijah knows. Why? A wheeze, then laughter like breaking glass. Truth hurts, babe. You think Harlan Jr.'s clean? Dig deeper, Elias's attic chest? Not just love letters. Deeds to offshore islands, tax havens. Your boy's sitting on a powder keg and I'm the match. Join me, or watch it blow. Elijah's blood chilled. The chest, Jack's shadow, Elias's secrets. What deeds? Marcus coughed, wet and final. Ask your lover. He found him first. During his research for that painting. Sold one to fund his show, my tip-off. The line died. Oliver stared at the phone, face ashen. Eli, you knew. Not a question. Elijah backed away, the library's shadows lengthening like fingers. Rifled through Grandpa's ghosts for cash? Betrayed me for paint and canvas. No. Oliver lunged, grabbing his arm. I found papers, yes, deeds Elias squirreled for protection, not crime. One was foreclosed junk, a Virgin Islands rock worth pennies. I sold it to a collector for 20 grand, legit, through Voss's vetting, to buy supplies before the gallery pitched. Told the buyer it was Harlan provenance. No harm. Elijah wrenched free, chest heaving. No harm? You pawed my inheritance like a flea market, then lied. I didn't lie. Oliver's voice cracked, tears spilling. Omission, maybe. Fear you'd think me a grifter, like Marcus said. The name ignited Elijah's fuse. And him? The motel? Was that omission too? Oliver deflated, sinking to the rug. He showed up, begged for money, not me. I gave him the 20 clean slate. He snapped the pics himself, photoshopped the timestamps. Checked the metadata. Voss can. Silence stretched, taut as a staysail. Elijah's mind raced. Love versus legacy, trust a fraying rope. He knelt, cupping Oliver's face, thumbs tracing wet trails. If you're lying, I'm not. Oliver leaned in, forehead to forehead. Test me. Fire me from the foundation, audit every stroke. But don't, please, let him win. Elijah kissed him then, tentative, tasting desperation and dawn. It deepened. A plea answered, hands roaming, clothes shedding in the lamplight's glow. They moved to the rug, bodies a testament. Oliver's mouth worshipful on Elijah's skin, drawing moans like confessions. Elijah entering him slow, eyes locked, each thrust a vow, believe, forgive, endure. Oliver's release came with a sob, Elijah following, collapsing in a heap of limbs and labored breaths. Morning brought clarity. Voss confirmed. The deed legit, sale above board, metadata faked. Marcus confessed via email. Dying man's ramble of jealousy, no bombs left to drop. Ramsey faced charges, the board solidifying under Elijah's vision. But the real unraveling came from Harlan. Over breakfast, Oliver nursing coffee, eyes puffy. The old man cleared his throat. Talked to a buddy at the precinct. Your ma. She didn't leave cause of me. Cancer. Elias paid for treatments, hush-hush, to spare you the grief. I blamed him, said he bought silence. Burned bridges, including that check. Elijah's fork stilled. Why now? Harlan's eyes met his, vulnerable. 'Cause you're building what I couldn't. Family, real. And Oliver. He nodded to the artist who tensed. He's good for you. Don't burn what Elias saved. The words mended fractures Elijah hadn't named. Mother's ghost. Father's silence. Tears came unbidden. Oliver's hand finding his under the table. Weeks blurred to months. The company thrived. First hydrogen freighter christened Jack's Promise. Sails unfurling like wings. Oliver's Show. Tides of Truth. Sold out MoMA's affiliate space. Canvases of Elijah's silhouette amid waves fetching 6 figures for queer youth shelters. Harlan stayed on, consulting docs, his gruff tales bonding crew like glue. One crisp November eve, anniversary of the bridge kiss, they returned to New York, Harlan footing the Amtrak for a full-circle pilgrimage. The archway welcomed them, city lights a constellation of second chances. Harlan hung back, giving space as Elijah pulled Oliver close. From ashes to anchors, Elijah murmured, nuzzling his neck. Oliver smiled, wind-tousled. And beyond dreams, their kiss sealed it, the East River whispering benediction. Back in San Francisco, the attic chest yielded its final gift. Elias's ring, gold band engraved JM and H, eternal knot. Elijah slipped it on Oliver's finger that Christmas. Under the estate's twinkling tree, Harlan toasting with tears. To legacies renewed, the empire sailed on, not flawless, storms of markets, murmurs of prejudice, but steered by love's true north. Elijah's script sold to indie producers, a queer epic of sailors and secrets, Oliver consulting on visuals. Harlan found peace in AA meetings at the Castro Chapel, mending his own sails. In quiet nights, tangled in sheets overlooking the bay, Elijah traced the ring's gleam. Worth more than billions, he whispered. Oliver's laugh was sunlight, heart's true gold. And in the end, it was forged in fire, anchored in choice, a Harlan legacy rewritten not in dollars, but in the tender, defiant beat of 2 hearts against the world's vast sea.